I usually only read Psalm 23 during funerals and Shiva prayers and Yizkor services, and sometimes at a hospital visit or while at the bedside of someone who is dying or has just died. When I'm experiencing my own moments of turmoil, there are other psalms that I reach for. Psalm 126 speaks of those who sow in tears who will one day reap in joy. Psalm 30 tells us, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And it speaks of how our mourning will be turned into dancing. But the 23rd Psalm is the one that I only reach for as a rabbi. It's comforting to many because it's familiar. And yet I wonder how many of us ever really think about the words themselves. We murmur them like an old friend, relaxing into the words, and we wait for the line, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and we emphasize it. That's what it's all about, right? God is with us in our darkest moments. God is walking next to us through whatever terrible valley we are wandering. And it implies that God will help us out of the valley as well, that we won't be left there to wander endlessly. But what about the rest of the psalm? Let's look for a moment to the earlier lines of the psalm. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside still waters. God restores my soul. What's that all about? Aren't green pastures and still waters places that we'd likely want to be voluntarily? We'd want to be there anyway. Why must we be made to walk there? Why must we be led? On Yom Kippur, we consider the merits of prayer. Unlike other times of year when prayer can be a balm to our spirits, prayer on Yom Kippur can sometimes feel deeply uncomfortable. We're being forced to confront our worst mistakes and misdeeds. We may even feel we are being forced or guilted into prayer. On Yom Kippur, it might feel like prayer is green pastures that we'd rather not be in, and that the still waters may seem like a peaceful place where we aren't sure we deserve to be. And at times when we are grieving our losses, it might even feel like these beautiful places are places that God doesn't deserve to be. I know that at times in my life when I've been angry with God, prayer has not felt like a beautiful meadow, rather more like a battlefield. And yet, when I consider that perhaps God has led me to prayer and made me participate, I have ended up feeling grateful that the place we are avoiding, thinking it might be a painful place, could turn out to be a welcome respite, a green pasture with still waters, a place to lay down and rest. God maketh me lie down, the psalm continues. Sometimes we don't know what's best for us. We're like overtired children whose parents must force them to go to bed. We fight it, we cry, we scream. And in the end, a good night's sleep was exactly what we needed. And even if we don't know how to express it, and even if we don't recognize it, we are grateful. God maketh us lie down. And then there's another aspect to consider, the translation. If you look at the literal translation of the Hebrew, the word yarbitzeni, which we commonly translate as leads me to, as in God leads me to green pastures, is from the verb leharbitz, which means to hit or to strike. That can't be right. God strikes us in green pastures. God strikes us down in green pastures. That can't be right. Even if we're like naughty children who need to go to bed, our divine parents certainly wouldn't slam us down into our crib. When I first noticed this literal reading, a respected friend and colleague reminded me that Psalms always contain parallelism, especially in their imagery. The Eternal is my shepherd. Shepherds use sticks to guide their flocks. They hit them gently to direct them where they need to go, to the green pastures, to the still waters. The Eternal is our shepherd. We are God's flock. We read these words again and again on these holy days. In our darkest moments, moments of grief and moments of shame, we don't know how to take care of ourselves. We can't see through our pain to know where we need to be. We can't find the green pastures. We can't find the still waters. So God shepherds us to them so that our soul can be restored. In the valley of the shadow of death, or in any of the spiritual valleys where we find ourselves wandering during our lives, in those places, we feel like we have no control. We feel like we're at the mercy of fate and grief and anger and fear and loss. And so we cry out for a shepherd to guide us through it, even to prod us along if necessary, until we're feeling more in control, back on our feet, until we can smell the fresh water for ourselves and find our own way out of the valley and into the pasture. Some days we need a shepherd, and some days we are the shepherd. We reach for the words that will comfort another. We offer outstretched arms and advice and a friendly listening ear. We bring food. We give hugs when we can give them safely. Some days we are the shepherd. Some days we need the shepherd. We are the flock. And when we are, a little prayer that some shepherd will come along to guide us through makes absolute perfect sense. The Eternal is my shepherd. I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside still waters.